very interested in the infrastructure, and staying again on creativity. The whole question of how do we enhance the creative space. And maybe I should start with you, Bwana Muriuki, because of the question that was asked by Simon Music, and the linkage between the creative sector and tourism as part of the industries that services the creative sector and so on. If you could just share from your perspective what opportunities exist, and including actually some of the challenges that you might be experiencing, and how the sector can actually help kind of deal with those challenges. So what opportunities do we have for this linkage for Nakuru? What gaps exist, and what can we do as a sector to support in bridging this gap?
I have been asked to comment about market linkages, that is between creatives and the tourist industry, or tourism industry that, for that matter. And I believe there are so many opportunities. Let me first share an experience that I had very recently. I think when we had a function at the Nakuru Players Theatre, and I met a lady who is, I think, in the management of Salova Woodland Hotels, and she was telling me that she has always been looking for, acrobats, but she cannot get any. Then I was wondering, but we have so many acrobats in our county. So opportunities are there. Maybe it's only that we have not exploited those opportunities. And maybe another thing that is happening in terms of now marketing our artists, there is a gap, as you have identified. One, we have not created enough forums for would-be consumers of the creative products to know that they are there and to get them, talking and having such kind of conversations. So I think that is one area that we need to improve in. Secondly, we also need, that is something that we can do as the government, but what about the creatives themselves? They also need to up their game when it comes to marketing. And for us, where we can come in is maybe the capacity building bit. We can have those workshops, call people, can facilitate such kind of programs. But at the end of the day, it has to be the commitment of the two parties. We have to work hand in hand. That is the government and the creatives, if at all we have to succeed in this area. So I think I've mentioned the gap and the solution at the same time. We need to up our game. And we also need to commit more resources because I think that is where the rubber meets the road. We might talk about holding workshops, holding these clinics, but if we don't commit the budget towards that, how is it going to happen? And also, maybe in terms of that, we also need to engage other stakeholders, because you realize maybe sometimes the government may not have enough budget to do it on its own. But if we can have that interagency kind of an approach, then we can achieve so much together. The other day, there was an event at the theater, I think Poetry After Lunch. And I saw KCC coming in, I think the British Council. Those are forums that we also as the government, we feel that we should join, so that even if we don't have the financial bit, we have the structural bit, we have other ways we can help in facilitation. And I think by so doing, because we are serving the same communities, we shall have achieved something.
You have mentioned Poetry After Lunch, or the poetry theater interface. The county government actually supporting that effort by creating spaces and so on. And I was just wondering, when it comes now to even mapping the hotels that are working with the creatives, whether that is not a low-hanging fruit, where you start by mapping them. Which are these hotels that are working with creatives? In what way? Is it in music? Is it in performing, performances, basically theater? Is it in poetry? Is it actually in visual arts? Are they buying, things, wall hangings and so on from the sector and so on, so that you map that and then you see where the gap is, who is not doing it and why are they not doing it? Because sometimes it's about being sensitized to doing it. Yeah. Is there something that you would consider?
Yes, Professor, I believe it is that, and it is also much more, because it's not just about mapping the hotels, it is also about mapping our artists also. We need to have a database that is so comprehensive that any person, any consumer comes asking for any form of art, we are able to direct them to the right place. So it is about mapping, yes, not just the hotels, but also what we have in terms of creative products. So I agree with you to that extent, yes. In fact, it is something that is in very advanced stages. We have been mapping artists. We have a very comprehensive database. It may not be that comprehensive because creatives come every other time, but we keep updating those records. The good thing with the current government is that now culture and arts is now with tourism, and I think they are much more related than where we were before. So someone is doing a mapping for tourism destinations and all that. We are also doing a mapping for the creative. It becomes an easy task. It has been a problem because maybe also the hotels are not exposed to what our artists can do. And that contributes to the low consumption of what our creatives produce. So it is also about telling them what is there, and also for us looking at what possibly would they want. Because there is a hotel and they are clientele, of course. What a certain clientele wants to consume is not what another, you see. Some might be in comedy, some might be in, staged plays and all that. So, yeah, kuangalia the preferences of our potential customers.
I'll be coming back to you with another set of areas of interest to me, and I also think that it's of interest to the creative sector generally in Nakuru. But I want to go to Hyrax. Liza, if you could, I have not personally been to the museum. So if you could just tell us a little bit about what it offers, so that I think many of these guys have not been there. Have you guys been to the Hyrax Museum? Mikono Ju? Not everybody, so we can get some more.
Hyrax Hill dates back to the 1920s. So originally, there was a dairy farmer. She was called Mrs. Ada Selfie. She used to live there. And then one day, as she was just walking around the compound, she came around some stones that were arranged in a very unique way. So, which meant there were some people who used to live there before. So she later contacted Dr. Louis Leakey and Mary Leakey as well, who came and did the excavations and stuff. And then only to find out that there was a group that they were called the Sirikwa people who used to live there before. And then in 1943, it was gazetted as a national monument. And later in 1965, it was officially opened to the public. Yes. So we have two sites. There is the Iron Age, Site 1, which consists of the Iron Age and also a burial site. So in terms of the Iron Age, those are the tools that they used to use. And you see like the cape changing, like they used to be blunt and then now they become sharper and smaller. And then for the burial site, it was very interesting because the men were buried from the women. The way they were buried from the women, same case for the children. Yes. And then now we have...
You say that again?
All right, so I will go into details. So for the men, they were buried like in this position, which symbolized that they were the head of the family. And they'll still continue being the head of the family even in the afterlife. And then for the women, they were buried with like potteries and stuff, meaning they'll still continue to cook even for their husbands in the afterlife. And then the children were actually buried with nothing because they didn't own anything, so yeah. And then now we go... And then now we go to site 2. So the Siriko people actually originated like from Egypt. So they were actually coming to follow the source of River Nile. But now when they came here, the environment was so suitable for them, so they decided to settle here. So now site 2 actually consists of the mounds and the hollows. So the hollow is like the modern day cattle pen, where they used to put their animals, and then the mounds was like where they used to put the waste from the livestock.
And now that Nakuru has been designated a creative city, the only one in East Africa, East and Central Africa, very well located, carrying a huge responsibility for Kenya, you know. How do you see your space as contributing to this vibrancy? Because people are looking for energy, vibrancy, more opportunity.
We have a gallery where we actually exhibit those histories. So for the Sirikwa people, now that the modern day 5 ethnic groups that we have around here, which are like the Maasai, the Turkana, the Kalenjin, the Luo, and the Kikuyu. So we actually display those artifacts from their toolwork to their accessories, their weapons, their clothes. We do have that. And in terms of space, so Hyrax actually sits on 69 acres of land. We have a lot of open space, meaning we can host like events, creative events, you know, whether in terms of culture or even private events, we have that space.
Lots of space, lots and lots of space, and maybe working closely with the county government.
Yes.
And the Nakuru, you know, board, to just see how, you know, you can actually leverage on each other and so on and so on,
yes,
to really create this vision. And I think that documentation, of course, really, really important. Huh?
Yeah.
Great. Now, I move to an area that I have always been very interested in. And this is the area of architecture. Because I think that buildings should tell a story. Buildings, our structures should actually tell a narrative. They should be able to tell a story. And I've always had challenges understanding what stories the buildings in Nairobi, for example, tell. Especially the modern buildings that are being put up. So, Bana Kaggai, from your profession, the work you do in architecture, and now Nakuru is a creative city, what can we do to bring in the narrative, to bring in the story of the past, the present, and the future of Nakuru?
Yeah, I've been a resident of this town all the years. Born in Njoro, primary, high school Nakuru, Nairobi University, back to Nakuru working. So this is a town I know inside out. I've seen all the changes. I was here in the 1970s, early actually. So now, so when you talk of the past, the present, and the future, of course the future we may not talk about, but the past and current. I've been practicing here for the last 20 years now, after retiring from government. Now, the beauty of architecture, as you said, you mentioned earlier, architecture is art and science. It's both. Because you have to be creative to come out with a good design. You have to be scientific because the building has to stand. So even in training, architecture do the artistic and also structural soundness of the building. Now, for Nakuru, it's a city. I've seen its life when it was the cleanest town in Eastern Central Africa, and that's my prayer. We go back to that. The only catch is that things are changed, and they're changing. They keep on changing. Because of the technological advancement, so many things are changing. Our time, although I've caught up with the new generation, we are people of drawing board, D-square, pencil, rubber. This will be very tedious. But of course now, even at my age, I practice because the technology is there to do it. Not only that, we are able even to design for people who are in America. Communication is there, and you come out with something. Now, the creativity on the beauty of Nakuru City, this is a melting point of all cultures. Name anybody in Kenya, you'll find that ethnic group in Nakuru. So it is a place where all cultures are mixed. Is it the Maasai, the Kikuyu, the Luo, Luya, all of them are around. So, Professor and delegates are capturing that issue sometimes is becoming difficult because it looks as we are the one who's losing that cultural touch. If you may allow, I deviate slightly offline. As I was speaking, I raised this issue. There's a forum that was created this year for elderly architects and contract surveyors. It's called Elders Forum. And I raised an issue of the buildings we are coming up with. They lack design. You just do a building and you clad it with the glass. There's no feeling. There's no friendly climatic. And it's like you're running away from our professional input. In that, as you design even the appearance of the building is part of the develop it. But quite a number of buildings, I raised that issue in that forum, and it's still under discussion as we are speaking now, because of the beauty we are talking about. There's a cultural center, there's a city, and we want to see it grow. So in short, still, with the young generation, we are working together with our inputs as elders, but they are very dynamic. And there are some things they do that sometimes we even feel afraid, but we moderate them a bit. I don't know if there are some here in the same profession, either structural engineering, architectural, or quantity surveying, but they are doing okay. Apart, maybe they also want to do things very fast with computers. Of course, I can't compete with them, but I'm still in it also. So there's so much I can say about architecture. Maybe time will not allow, but I'm available for any question that may arise.
Yeah. One of the things that is going to affect the creative sector substantially, of course, is artificial intelligence. So we will be commanding our computers to give us a design that give me a building that has 3 bedrooms, has a historical connection with British expeditions across Africa, and please give me some a strong African touch combined with the British colonial history. And then you retreat, go and prepare a cup of tea. And before you know it, it's been designed for you. You come back and you print it. Bwana Kaggai, what are we going to lose? Supposing we just go in that direction of artificial intelligence, where we just creating buildings, what are we going to lose?
Architecture is an art and is also a science. And even at this age of very advanced technologies, design, you don't just jump into a computer and start keying in. You have to start with a concept. I have to listen to you, understand what you want, and basically, I was starting with a pencil to develop that idea until now, before I go right into the electronics. So what we may lose, as we say now, is the beauty of things, creativity, the human mind, even with artificial intelligence, cannot match the human brain. is God's creation. Let me repeat, even at this age, and most universities, they are still using manual training for architects. Before you go, I think they start third year now to go to computers and laptops. Because basically, it's an idea. You have to be creative, okay? You can't just touch those keys and you come out with something nice. You sketch nicely and that they develop the idea. And also with the owner, the client, you keep on developing that. So we are going to lose some beauty if we go that way. But there are a lot of pluses of what you have said. You key in for that information. The design comes out. The bills of quantities are the cost of the building. They come out. Structural drawings, they come out. So there's a lot of efficiency with the artificial intelligence or the technology we have. But as I'm saying, it can also have a lot of negative things. Personally, although this is subjective, it's not objective. I don't like these glass-clad buildings. I don't like them because there's no input of a design. You know, you design, even someone seeing that, you will appreciate that facade. Eh? But when it's just glass, it's like you're running away from making something beautiful out of that facade. So I think I've answered that there's a lot of pluses for the artificial intelligence, but there's a lot of negatives in terms of the beauty and creativity in it.
Absolutely. So we will increase productivity through artificial intelligence. So there is going to be we can produce a lot of stuff rather quickly but we take it as a first draft, which then now needs to be subjected to human intervention and so forth and so on. And I, before I move to Njoki, because you've been in here since the 70s, are there particular buildings you would like restored or reorganized?
Yes, Professor, there are quite a number of old buildings that are there. Maybe like the people know Nakuru, the old Kenya Commercial Bank. There's the one that used to be called the Oyster Shell. They are still very nice because the design, the architects who did that, it's like a song. Some songs will be there all the time. Yeah? They will not lose the beauty, even many years back. So some buildings here, quite a number of them, like I'm quoting, Colonial Times, KCB, Oyster Shell, they are good. And restoration, maybe some renovations, decorations will make all the difference. So those ones with the county government, I'm very close to the system here. I interact with them. So I mean, as you raise it, maybe we can raise that one also. There's a small point I remember now I didn't mention. Architecture is not only buildings. It involves the roads, it involves the spaces, external spaces, landscape. In fact, there's a specific discipline called landscape architecture. They are called landscape architects. They are there nowadays, there are many. So it covers the whole environment, not only the structure itself. The external, road network, the external spaces, gardens, and to say the beauty of Nakuru is being brought back. I'll give you an example. The gardens, you know, they are nice. They've done very nicely, the Nyayo garden. Not only that, the former county government has done wonders. Kenyatta Avenue and most of these CBD area, you can walk. It's as smooth as this floor. Before you could go up, find very funny differentiation in terms of levels, you could fall down. But I think there was a World Bank funded project that now walking is very nice. Not only walking on the surfaces, there's a lot of trees, the environment is quite changed. It is taking the shape of a nice city. I hope the county government continues with that with all the other CBD areas. Thank you.
Absolutely. And of course, always thinking about people with disability who are also moving around the city so that our city is inclusive, completely inclusive. And also, even as we are designing, we also design in the universal way which ensures that anybody, notwithstanding their type of ability, can access. So I've always thought that maybe we need to be much more conscious of that. But let me shift to Njoki. Tell me about the space that you moved into, the creative space.
First and foremost, I'm a retiree. And you talked about media. I worked in media for almost 3 decades, for a very long time. And I went into the creative space at that point because I realized that our media was lacking in highlighting stories about local artists. And when you ask the editors, why aren't we covering them? Why are we focusing on international artists and vernacular artists? And the response I kept getting was because they are wannabe Americans. Yeah, they're copying the American artists, and so they have nothing of value. And I remember rebutting and saying, but these kids who are aping the American artists is because you as parents, that is what you've exposed them to. So that's what they know. So how can they know different unless you showcase, and then they can learn from that? And that's how we began to open the space. I was told, start. Here is a little space, start. And eventually that little space grew into the magazine at the Nation, the Pulse. It grew and it blew because all the artists needed was an opportunity to be heard, an opportunity to be listened, and an opportunity to showcase their craft. And so when I retired, I remember thinking, what is the one thing that gave me pleasure in my entire career? And it was that, providing a space where creatives can come and create, right? And be able to showcase their work. And for the first 2 years, I had a group of artists who resided at the center, where they were creating their work. They were, organizing events. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to support them for too long because 2 years ago, I then now got into the accident. But they worked on their own. And one of the major challenges that they expressed is you can have the infrastructure, but if you don't have traffic or activities that drive them into that infrastructure, then it becomes similar to a white elephant. And I was very happy when Muriuki was talking about mapping, right? We sat with him in the committee when we were, applying for Nakuru to be one of the creative cities. And I remember there was a time when we were trying to figure out where are the places. And that was a big challenge because we have the spaces, we have the infrastructure, but as artists, we are not aware of them. And if we are aware of them, we feel that they don't suit our particular kind of creativity. And so I was wondering, is there some activities or some policies that we can create that would help to drive traffic into these spaces? I remember when I was younger, as a journalist working at the Nation, when the big artists came, they used to do 3 shows. One in Nairobi, one in Nakuru, and then one in Mombasa. Nakuru was a special place. It was one of these big spaces or big, towns, that it was a must for people to come. And Nakuru artists had a name. And I don't know what happened in between. Suddenly, it's like that energy ended. And Nakuru artists felt they didn't have a space anymore. And so they moved to Nairobi. And there's been that, migration to Nairobi, which has left Nakuru artists quite frustrated. And I believe the opportunity that we have, having been appointed as a creative city in East and Central Africa, we have that unique opportunity to lead the way and create laws and policies that compel stakeholders within this city or this county to work together with creative artists. When the Minister for Information, former Raphael Tuju, insisted that a particular percentage of content was supposed to be local. There was a lot of resistance, of course, because the media outlets wanted to continue to enjoy revenue from the international programs. But he stood his ground, and what was the impact of that? Now we have a lot of infrastructure, and unfortunately based in Nairobi, but the film sector grew, the artist sector grew, KCC was renovated. Now we have a space in Nairobi where artists can grow their craft. We had award shows that came up just recognizing local talent. So what does that mean for us as the Nakuru County government? Can't we create laws that compel the tourists, the hotels, to be compelled to recruit at least one local artist to be part of the entertainment? Obviously, like the CEC said, the artists have to bring something quality to the table. But if they're discouraged, then they will not work on their craft, okay? So we need such laws. Can we compel businesses, if they're setting up any sort of interior decor, to involve local artists? And for government to also just enforce that. Because we'll find that there will be a synergy. As there's demand, and then there will be demand for the infrastructure. So when we do the mapping, I believe before we even start thinking of building new, is like you said, can we reimagine? Can we renovate? How can we create or expand those spaces to the extent that we can hold international events here? Yeah, we are a UNESCO branded creative city, which means we have the opportunity to get international artists to come, and for the Nakuru artists to be the main artist. Let the Nairobi artists come and be curtain raisers, but the Nakuru artists. And in those events, we have not just the stage for the drama and the music, but let's see the visual artists. People also setting up photos, their paintings, their jewelry, their textile. Even when we're having that festival, can we see a representation of all those categories of creative artistry before the main event? Because everybody goes for the performing artist. So before the performing artist gets on stage, can we have support? People are taken through a venue where they can interact with the creative pieces that have come from the other genres of creativity. And then you'll find that even a space like mine will grow because there will be demand for it. So the space right now, after this season, the first season has ended. So with my team, we have been restructuring the space. And one of the things that we want to do, we have a meeting in January, is we want to connect Nakuru artists with the media. Because like you said, media help to propel the profile of an artist. But one story is just one story. What else can you do after that? How can we create our brand? So we want to start a training program where we can work with artists to build their brand, to be able to effectively communicate about their brand, to protect their brand in terms of copyright, legal issues, and then to showcase. Find opportunities where they can showcase, and there's an audience that comes and pays, and they're able to benefit from that. And where possible, also network. When we're looking at these stakeholders, what other avenues? I was very happy when the first guest from the British Council, sorry, I didn't get your name, Sandra, yeah. When she talked about future opportunities of creative artists being able to perform abroad, and perhaps we'll do an exchange program where those artists will also come here and work with our creative artists and, bring them to that level, elevate their craft to international standards. So as we are looking at infrastructure, let's also look at what is that building, that space supposed to do? What work is it supposed to do in terms of building the creative economy? Is it sufficient to do that? What can we do? Because even if you want to do a tour of Nakuru County, if you have an event in Nakuru, and then Njoro, where will you go in Njoro? Do you go to a hotel? Is there a county hall? Is that county hall good enough? Will the Nairobi clientele come? Will the international clientele come? What do we need to build that existing space already to that level where we can draw crowds of people to come and have events and then stay in Nakuru? And you'll find that if the tourists are enjoying clientele, then also want to support our own creative artists. So there are synergies. The infrastructure cannot work independently on its own.
Absolutely, and thank you very much, Njoki, for that. And as you're speaking, I was thinking about what the county could actually do. For example, an awards scheme for hotels. Hotels that show evidence of working with the creative sector. So that you are introducing competition within the hotel industry and you award marks, really. Just as we do with, for example, the media awards and so forth and so on, in terms of content, so on. So an award scheme for tourists that show evidence of signing contracts with the creative sector. Okay? The rooms, the hotel rooms should have art. Okay? Instead of having bare walls, do they have a piece of art? Yeah? Which now can be a basis of a story, for the guest and so on, So that type of creative ways of integration would actually be very, very good. I remember when we did. I was the founding chair of the Kalasha Film and Television Awards, and we built the system for what you see in Kalasha. When we were starting, it was at zero. We really started at zero, and we built it. Now everybody is, everybody talks about Kalasha, but I can tell you, when we were designing that and introducing different categories, it was at zero. Can we do something similar for Nakuru County as a creative city? Introduce awards, on a regular basis, different categories. And it doesn't have to be very expensive. Again, bring in the private sector, bring in other partners and so on. Because what Njoki is talking about is about audience development. How do you develop audiences for creative products? And how do you build habits and so on?
I've also been thinking, and I think I have expressed this in other forums, about how the market, the local hotels also can help market our artists. That other angle, yeah? Because many of their clientele come, they don't have anywhere to go in the evening. Some of them are not into going to the local joints and all that. Where can they get to consume what they want? Like Nakuru Players Theatre is just near so many big hotels there. And you might find that some of the people in those rooms are theatre lovers, but they don't know what is happening at Nakuru Players Theatre. Can we also think about using hotels and getting, this is a challenge that I've always been telling Simon and Eric. Can we have a calendar of events? Then we have a very good hard bill and request the hotels to have them so that client coming there for a weekend knows that on Saturday there is this performance, on Sunday there is this performance. Maybe that is also another angle that we might need to.
Absolutely, it's about linkages, building linkages between the various interests. So you link the sector with hotels, link the sector with ministry, and then of course build incentives, different types of incentives, which do not have to be like punitive. You don't have to go in the punitive direction. Sometimes I feel like you should put some conditions before you do the license. As you apply for the license, show me some evidence of something, Show me evidence that you've been working in the creative sector, And you kind of incentivize this.
My name is Wes Songa, as he has said. Maybe my question goes to our sister from the Hyrax Hill. It's something we are getting today, that Hyrax Hill is there. Not that we don't know, but my question is, what are you doing to make sure that Nakuru as a county and also these creatives are taking part in that special space that we have there? And in terms of marketing, what are your plans so that you're also involved in what you're doing?
The problem is this. Without mapping, I go to a hotel. They call me. They tell me, Samba, I want you to maybe be our DJ or do a performance for us. I tell them, because of how I branded myself, I'll ask for 50,000. Then they will say, okay, we'll contact you. Then someone walks in. How much are you going to pay you? That person says 5,000. Then they say to that person, tuko na food na pombe. We just have some food and alcohol and fare for you. And then that person will say, well, it's okay, I'm fine. At the end of the day, people just want to show in social media they are doing things. But in the real sense, they are not making money from it. So for us to stop that, because if we don't stop that, sorry to say that in Nakuru or many creatives we have, there's a mentality that we have that you'll always bite back at your brother. Analipisha ngapi? Then that's how the industry in Nakuru is suffering. Because if I refuse because of my standard, someone else will do it. That thing, the problem that you've been having is, and that will help us through policy formulation, is a well-elaborated structure that works from bottom up and from up to bottom. I'm not meaning it in any political way. It's just the way I could put it. Through policy formulation, let's create a structure that has been endorsed straight from the governor, that encompasses all creatives. And then the communication is known from the governor mpaka chini to the creatives, and then from the creatives to mashinani. Sisi tuko tao. We have access to a few things. What about the creatives in mashinani? I'll go to the engineer. Last year I was house hunting. Men, Nakuru, kuna drama. We have a problem with the houses. I'm telling you. You go to a house, the kitchen, they know the kitchen is sink. One step niko nje ya kitchen. Unaenda kwa bathroom, yani lazima uingie hivi, uchange, ugeuke hivi. Saa kutoka lazima pia utoke design flani. So you are like, so alijenga hizi nyumba. And then the person who's built a house is very funny, has built like somehow like a corridor. Even if you take a water with a basin, you can't pass. So how are you going to get to the shower? Honestly speaking, we have a problem with the houses. And with the houses that are being built, zitakosa wase. The last one, exchange programs for creatives. That will open our minds, and then we come back and invest back in our community. Thank you very much.
First and foremost, I would love to say this conversation is very healthy for especially creatives like us. Actually, less than a month ago, I was in France, and actually I learned something. They're involving infrastructure in terms of CSR. So they said in every infrastructure, whether it's road, building, or even technology, they have a CSR that they involve CSR to push it in supporting creatives. So my question was going to the engineer and Mr. Eric. Does CSR work here in Kenya in terms of when you're building, either it's a road, a building, or anything? Do we have a CSR there that the county government knows that they can use that money to involve us as creative in doing something? We can be doing a promotion for the building, a promotion for the road, a promotion for any technology that has been created by you, involving the government. Now the government involves us in that tender. Thank you.
Yeah, so my question was in terms of inclusivity, and this would go to Infrustructure, Mr. Kaggai, and the Hyrax Hill. So my question will be, how are you including artists in what you're doing? Because there's always the question where the buildings in Nakuru are almost becoming the same face, you know? And artists would like to just express, and like the professor said, there's a ways that these buildings can actually be unique and identical just for Nakuru. Let them not be like Nairobi or any other part of Kenya. How can you include artists to actually talk about that? And then Hyrax Hill, you had a very beautiful story, and I feel like a lot of young people have not heard this. Can we partner with creatives to make these stories very engaging to the young people right now that we have digital media, that we have spaces where they can tell these stories, so they can open their mind, so that people know Hyrax Hill, they just pass it and they just know that's a place for parents to take their kids. Can we make it open and include everyone in that conversation? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Is it possible to work with the chefs in Nakuru to create a dish that is specific in the culinary arts for Nakuru, as a Nakuru dish that is different? So when you come to Nakuru, you have a Nakuru dish that is created by the chefs in Nakuru. Something that falls within the culinary arts. Yeah, Bwana Muriuki.
Maybe I will start with my friend for many years, Mike Kamunya. About the database, the coverage is not just about Nakuru town. It is the whole of the Nakuru County. And we have made very good progress, particularly when it comes to people dealing with indigenous knowledge, sana the herbalists. We are working with NADEPA. They are giving us very good data across the county. We are also working with cultural groups, ambassadors. We have identified several people who are also giving us some very good data, Kinakisija from Rongai, and so on and so forth. So it is not just about Nakuru East and West. In fact, nowadays, even when we have events, we make sure that we get representation from every sub-county. We may not get from every ward, because we have 55 wards, but at least we get representation from the 11 sub-counties. The other question was from Madam about whether we have a tool or an app. The answer is no. But taken in a very positive and good faith, because it is something that we can work on. That is why it is good to have young people in such forums, because they can think beyond our conventional way of thinking and, pose such good ideas. It's a very good idea. I think it is an idea that we need to follow up. And since we have our own IT department, we just give them the idea, let them work with the young people who have the idea, develop it, and if it is benefiting the county, why not? The other thing was about the creatives. That was from DJ Saba. Being in the informal sector, I agree with you. That has been a very big problem. The validation bit, we don't have job groups for artists, and it is a challenge. And what are we doing about this? We have started the process of coming up with our Nakuru County Cultural Heritage and Arts Policy. I think anytime this year, before very long, we will be having our first inception meeting. It has already been prepared. We are just waiting for the availability of funds, then we can communicate to the stakeholders, and we start the process. So the idea is to do away with this recurring challenge. Saba, you mentioned about you market yourself somewhere, somebody comes behind your back, puts a lower price and takes. Yeah, it happens. But this, I want to throw it back to the artists. I'm very impressed that of late, in the last couple of years, I've seen some very positive changes. We are working with a technical working group that is an association of the sector players who are actually formal groups coming together and, interacting with us and working with us, That has been a positive. Another positive that I have noticed in the artists themselves, they have formed themselves into groups that can, fight for themselves. I remember Hash PK, I've seen Hash PK, I've seen DJ Sammy, I've seen my friend. It is called the Click, Yeah, the Click. I see them, marketing themselves in the social media. I see them going for gigs together. And I think now that is the way to go. You go it alone, these problems will always be there. But when you are, together, you form a very good bargaining, power. So another positive and the way to go. Mapping of the creatives. Yeah, mapping of the creatives again is not just about Nakuru Side West. It is everywhere. Then you also mentioned something about the exchange programs. A very good idea. And now that we are a UNESCO Creative City, one of the ideas when we were coming up with the application process was so that we can, get a platform for exchange of best practices. And how can we do this? The first thing that we need to start thinking about is now having very elaborate festivals that attract international participants. Once we start that, we start inviting people from other countries and other cities that are in line with what we are doing. I'm very sure we also have to get invitations. So, and that now opens that avenue for our artists to move from here, go to other spaces and learn. Also, not just the artists, but also the artistic and our cultural products. We'll be opening the markets, so to say. So that is also a very good observation. More just about whether we have that. I would say we don't have, but it's something that we need to explore. It's something that we need to think around. Then finally, Professor, about working with the chefs and coming. It is something that we have always asked ourselves. Why is it that we don't have a certain dish that we can say, now this one is associated with Nakuru? You go to Mombasa, they have something they can be proud of. You go to Western, kama hakuna kuku, hakuna chakula, but here in Nakuru, and one thing that we have been doing, and we are doing every financial year, is that we are having exhibitions, food exhibitions. And this is now something that we can discuss with our stakeholders. We have been working very closely with Slow Food Kenya, and this is something that we can bring to the discussion. It's a very good idea.
That you can. I really think that you can. It's just working with the right people.
Yes.
And branding it.
True.
And really making enough noise to watu watake wasitake.
This is
chakula cha Nakuru. And you make sufficient noise that we all know when you come to Nakuru, this is what you eat. And I can tell you there are people who will actually come to Nakuru just to eat the Nakuru dish, if it is good. But marketed, branded, and Nakuru is the melting pot of different cultures. So it must be a multicultural dish, and so on. So anyway, that's something you guys can discuss. I think that should actually be good, again, to enhance the culinary arts in Nakuru.
So I'm going to incorporate the first and last question asked to me. So I came to Hyrax over 2 months ago. I'm actually very new, and I noticed marketing was quite a challenge over there. But good news was that 2 weeks ago we actually aired on Citizen TV, so that was quite a good start. Secondly, almost all of you don't know, I'm actually a poet. So this topic in terms of creative is actually very personal, very close to me. So as Hyrax Hill, we have the space. So I am welcoming actually all creatives to come. We see how we can work together, showcase even the events at the museum. That also extends to exhibitions. We already have exhibitions, but we're welcome to having temporal exhibitions. So in terms of artwork, and also like maybe accessories from the local communities. That way we can like help each other like to grow. Yeah.
Absolutely. One of my favorite expressions nowadays is co-creation. You co-create. You create with others, so that even as you're creating the package for the collaboration, you meet and co-create the output, so that you benefit and the creative sector benefits. So you actually co-create the program, for artistic involvement. I think that would really be good for you. And I think that you have a tremendous opportunity. And Eric, if I were you, I would pick it up. Aya. Mzee wangu.
Now, on undercutting in the field that you're saying, you come and somebody comes and costs even less. This is in all fields. Like me, I'm governed by Chapter 525 of the laws of Kenya, which controls the architects and quantity surveyors, but undercutting is there. So what you do it best so that even if your price is higher, people still come to you. It's all over, that one. As for the house hunting, am I laughing? It's true. You may even see a very appealing building on the facade. That is the appearance. But when you go inside, it's total chaos. The planning, okay? As we are trained to plan. Might may not look as impressive, but when you go inside, the spaces are working. The movements, the sizes, they are standards. Okay, the position is this. The county government is the approving authority of all building. But when it's done by people who are not, and they are there, should be working, it's supposed to be brought to someone like me who is registered, counter check, see that all the standards are met, attach my certificates after signing before it goes to the county government for approval. So there must be a shortcut for such a building to have passed. Either they misuse somebody's certificate or it is not even approved. They may not even have an occupation certificate. But since some of you be developers, that's how to lose money. Nobody's coming to stay in that house. And in case somebody comes, it's very temporary on transit. So you might as well do something good from the word go, and then any tenant coming into that building will stay for a long time, and you are sure of your returns. Now, Mr. Kamunya is my village mate. You are right to call me an engineer. Architecture is very complicated even in spelling. Even when I was in governor, the casualers used to call me engineer, and you just accept it. I've done engineering for the first 3 years. I agree with you, Mr. Kamunya. Our gardens are not being utilized fully. You're just going to sleep on the grass, and there are some seats there you sit on. There are more functions that can be done. I request, since we stay with the same place with Kamunya, to judge one, and congratulations. You have been in the creative field for a very long time. Keep it up. So be in touch with me, then we can organize how to kukimbiza kina Eric wafanya kitu hiyo gardens.
A few questions were asked, but there are also other questions that I feel I can contribute. I'll do it very quickly. So Kamunya started by asking whether at the center we work with children. We have outreach programs that we're working with children. The artists who are resident at the center used to go to children's home and paint their walls and paint inside and conduct classes for them. And then at the center, what we're working with, it's more structured, so we're working with schools. So the schools come, and they're also in charge of the children. So they come for camps and things like that. And while they're there, they're able to interact with the artists who are residents there. And then also my daughter has done some work at her home that is near the center. What is it called? I've forgotten. Viwagoya. So she's worked with them in terms of painting, those kind of classes. And then you also asked a question about UNESCO City. You also asked a question about UNESCO City. I'm sure Babushe will add something, but even if it's just within the boundaries of the city, if it's an international activity and people come, you'll find people want to find out what are the interests outside the Nakuru City itself. I know my center was also included in part of the infrastructure of the UNESCO City, but I'm in Gilgil County. I'm in Gilgil sub-county. But if there are any activities, we'll go there. So if we finish the mapping of the areas, then when those activities are done, they can also be invited to those spaces. And maybe what I can challenge Mr. Muriuki is maybe along the way, we can think about it. How about conducting maybe every 2 months or quarterly tours of some of these spaces with the creatives so that they are aware of what are the available spaces and what can they do there, what kind of support can they get, what are the kind of collaborations they can get. And then in terms of what you asked, the formalizing of the industry, it's a very good idea to formalize. My creative art is writing. I'm a writer and an editor. And for many years I worked in the media. And in the media we have several associations that bring the journalists together. We have the Kenya Union of Journalists, we have the Editors Guild. Now there's one that we have partnered with for this program for the center, the Art, Entertainment and Arts Correspondents. But you'll find as much as you have the association, it's supposed to help us network and grow. But at the end of the day, it's BDIACO. When you go out there, there's an issue of competition. There is something the client wants and there's something you want. And therefore, it is, what are you bringing to the table? We cannot be afraid of competition. Because if they're taking the 5,000 one, then they don't value your craft. And you need to look back and walk away. Yeah? Because it's not about somebody is undercutting me. It's what value are you bringing? Is your quality so good that they cannot say no to you, irrespective of the price? So we need to look at brand building, brand imaging, and the brand quality that we have so that no one can undercut you. So those are just some thoughts that we can think about instead of always being afraid of competition. And then finally, another challenge I would give Mr. Muriuki is that on these cultural spaces, as my colleague here said from Hyrax, marketing budgets are usually very limiting. And there are obstacles that make it difficult for such cultural spaces to advertise themselves. So maybe we can work with the government because you have a communication department that can go around, write about these stories, and use your platforms to really promote these spaces as well. And then, as you talked about elaborate events, but if we can take the advice from Professor here, before we get to the elaborate, maybe we can start small and then grow it. When we create the hype using your office and other stakeholders, they will grow, and then people will get to know what do we have to offer as creative artists here. Because when they come here, let it not be that we are bringing Sauti Sol. Yeah? We need to identify our own big artists. Yes, it's good, they can become guests, but we need to grow our own. Come to Nakuru to meet Nakuru artists. So who are the big artists here? That they become the showstopper. And then in terms of CSR, I just want to share an experience and end with that. When I was working at Keroche, I used to be the CEO of the Keroche Foundation. One of the deputy president at one time called a meeting for all corporates, the big corporates, the large, the middle, medium, and large corporates. And he wanted them to commit to support young entrepreneurs. And they had regular meetings where they had to announce or report what have they done, how have they allocated their budgets in terms of supporting that. And part of what the role we picked was working with young entrepreneurs, already established entrepreneurs, and funding, giving them a little grant to expand their businesses. So maybe we need to think about setting up something like that will bring corporates together and challenge them to support creative artists. But the creative artists also need to up their game so that it doesn't look like a donation. It needs to look like a collaboration. It is, we have these great products and we need these great products elevated and marketed at an international level. So what are the synergies that we can create there? What collaborations, what partnerships can we create? And I know when government is in the forefront, you find that corporates will follow. Unlike if it was a formalized creative sector doing it, there's always hesitation because you don't know whether this formal union is legitimate, whether it has integrity. But if it is being partnered by the government, being spearheaded by the government, you will find a lot of corporate organizations, including international organizations, will want to work with government to support the creative economy. And as we're looking at that, let's also look at, I think he mentioned budgeting. When the creative budget is a footnote, the message that we send to the rest of the country is that creative artistry is up by the way. That's the message you send. And so you find parents, when their children tell them they want to pursue a particular craft, they're told no. Pursue it as a hobby, but don't pursue it as a career. So we need to change the mindset right from government, where even if it's not money, but what other initiatives can government come up with to uplift the status of creative industry so that it becomes a proper way of earning a livelihood, right? We stop talking about hustling, but actually this is a career. Yeah, you can find different avenues of creating income or generating income using your craft. So we can think of all those partnerships that we can create and how you can lead that front.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you very much. I clap the panelists, guys. Really, really, really good stuff. Very, very good stuff. Very good stuff coming out. Again, the whole question of what can I do? What can we do collectively? How can we energize ourselves together? And I think that through this type of conversations, we can carry a set of really actions which we can actually follow through. So the challenge goes back to you: organize yourselves, improve the quality, and improve the quantity. So improve the quality, and organize yourselves. Be strategic, build strategic partnerships. When the meeting is called with the private sector, it should not be overloaded with too many asks. It should be very targeted. This is an ask for the creative sector. Very targeted. And one agenda. We would like you to do the following things for the creative sector. 1, 2, 3, 4, meeting over. 1 hour. Guys have gone. They have not carried too many messages. And please, can we meet in 2 months' time to see how you are doing? Sasa jamani.